Join me in God's show. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman. So, continuing on the topic of listening and hearing today, we're going to read a couple of short essays from this book, Buddhism of the Heart by Jeff Wilson. He's a professor in Canada. He's going to be our speaker here in November. So, we'll be able to hear him Sunday. Let's see, I think he's doing a BEC class here as well on a Sunday afternoon. So, first we're going to start with hearing and listening. Mompo, this is a Japanese word, mompo, hearing the Dharma, is a key concept in Shin Buddhism. Where some Buddhisms employ a visual metaphor for awakening, seeing reality, observing one's true self, etc., Shin tends to employ auditory ones. The difference is subtle but significant. Hearing is receptive, open. It implies that you receive something from another, rather than assertively seeing it yourself with penetrating eyesight. This is a manifestation of Shin Buddhism's emphasis on humility and receptiveness, the better to abandon reliance on the false ego self. Even though it may seem easy enough, hearing is actually rather difficult when you attempt to do it in an intentional way. For example, even in everyday conversation, we may wish to listen to others, but often our mind wanders. Either we get distracted or bored, or in many cases, we start composing our reply while our conversation partner is still talking. Let me stop here for a second. I was going to mention it in my talk, but I thought, oh, my wife is there, so I better not mention it. But I'm a terrible listener. I'm a terrible listener. I don't know how many times I've had this conversation with my wife, and we're talking, and I'm going, oh yeah, yeah, and then she stops in the middle of the sentence and she says, "What did I just say?" I hate it when she does that. Or it's like in the old days on the TV shows, the husband and wife are at the breakfast table, and the husband's got the newspaper up like this, and the wife is talking, and he's just kind of reading the newspaper, not listening. Nowadays, it's like we're on our cell phone and not listening to the other person. Okay, let's go back to the thing. Likewise, when trying to listen to the Dharma, whether it comes to us at temple, while talking with friends and mentors, or while walking silently in nature, we are apt to turn it over, to lose our attention and get entangled in thoughts, especially self-oriented ones. Returning to simple listening after being caught in distraction can be likened to how Buddhist meditators return to their breath after getting lost in thought. Like meditation, listening deeply takes practice. Yet, it is not a strenuous sort of exercise. For a moment or a day, listening is something we all can do. And when we realize that we are no longer listening, we just smile, nod, and start listening again. Well, that's what I should do next time. Just smile at my wife and then start listening again. Because there is no end goal other than to settle further into the Dharma, there is no need for self-recrimination if we lose the way for a while. We just reopen ourselves to the Dharma and let it continue its work of freeing us from our foolishness. See, so, we don't have to uh, get down on ourselves for having daydreamed for 5 minutes, during the message or something like that. Oh, my mind drifted off. Now we just bring it back, and then it might drift off again, and then we bring it back, just like one would do even in meditation. So I think this is a wonderful message about how we practice listening in the Shin Buddhist tradition. Any thoughts first on just listening like this, or listening in general? Listening to our husbands or wives, or listening to our children. It's the greater challenge, right? We think our children should listen to us, but we have to be able to listen to our children as well. Sometimes it's what's behind the words that they're saying that we're not hearing. Any thoughts on this essay? Let's see, do we have the wireless mics yet? Oh yeah, Ron has it. Anyone, any thoughts? Oh, over here. Is it John? Wasn't it John? Yes, John.
I was just thinking about the physicality of getting yourself ready for listening as well.
Hmm.
I found that for myself, and definitely for my son, I've noticed the same. That the closer we sit to the speaker,
Hmm.
obviously, a lot easier it is because it takes up more of our focus on a
Hmm.
more automatic basis. There's not as much having to force yourself into it. It's more just that is what is around you, and so you're able to take it in a little
Hmm.
easier.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, that's a good point. When I was in Japan, you would go to Dharma gatherings, and there would always be these devout, very devout elderly people, in many cases elderly. Uh, they attend the morning service at the Honganji, or even if it's a lecture by Professor, boy, they're in the front row. And sometimes people take notes if it's a lecture, but I remember this one lady, she just sat in the front row. She never took any notes, and she always had her eyes closed. And she just, so maybe it helped her really focus on her listening. She wasn't distracted by what she was seeing, but she was just really listening to the words of the speaker. Nowadays, I think in order to enhance our listening, I think we need the visual too. See, especially to gain the attention of the children. That's why we have the TV screens to try to visually get their attention. Now to listen to the message. Anyone else? Yeah, Janet. Wait for the microphone.
Thank you. I just want to say that reading, sometimes it doesn't get through to me. That's why when we come to these adult
Uh-huh.
sessions,
Uh-huh.
I appreciate your reading it aloud so I can hear it, and I seem to get more out of it by listening and
Uh-huh.
reading at the same time rather than just taking it home and reading it
Uh-huh.
myself. So.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's a good point. Yes, yes. I just this past few days I was at a minister's assistant program training seminar, and then there's a young woman from Japan who is on this called IMOP program. She's here for 3 months training to become a minister, and then her English was really good. And I asked, how did you get to be such a good at English? And she said she just listened to the radio and tapes, and that's how she learned how to pronounce correctly. So you have to listen, you have to hear it first before you can to speak it. So it starts from listening. Anyone else, any thoughts on this first essay? Okay, then I'd like to go to now he takes it another step, and instead of just listening, it's what's called deep hearing in Shin Buddhism. In Shin, we frequently talk about deep hearing. It is often considered the main religious activity of Shin followers. Based on remarks that some people have made to me, I think that misunderstandings of deep hearing must pop up from time to time. Bearing in mind that I too struggle to understand the many profound concepts found within Buddhism, I would like to offer my own understanding of deep hearing so that it might help others who are confused. The primary mistake that I see some people committing is a classification of deep hearing as a practice one performs. I can sympathize with those who wish to find some sort of plan of action in the concept of deep hearing. Shin Buddhism's message, that we are fine just as we all are, without any need for achievement, is as radical today as it was during Shinran's time. Everything within us cries out for a method, a practice, a tool, something to latch onto and use in order to transform ourselves into someone or something we wish we were. The idea of letting go of methods and, flip it over, and allowing Dharma to simply work on us is frightening. If we're people of self-confidence, that self-confidence encourages us to keep pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps. If we're people of self-doubt, that self-doubt whispers to us that we aren't going to be able to find Buddhahood. It's easy to understand why the Chinese Pure Land teacher Tan Luan said that the Pure Land way is easy, but few enter it. Those who see deep hearing as a practice or only understanding it partially. I think the mistake must arise from the fact that deep hearing is a process, but it is not a process of our ignorant selves working to become enlightened. Rather, it is a process performed by the natural unfolding of the Dharma in each of our lives. It isn't that we should strive to hear the Dharma, to perceive the call of Amida telling us that everything is all right just as it is. Rather, hearing comes about when we put down our efforts and let the Dharma work on us without interference. Deep hearing often has three stages. The first is when we listen to others telling us about the Dharma. Although we only understand things partially, out of faith we go back again and again to encounter the Dharma until it sinks into our bones. We listen to the stories and teachings of the tradition, soaking in the Dharma over the course of a lifetime until we are thoroughly wet. The call that liberates is already working on us, driving us to seek out the Dharma and reflect on it. Eventually, deep hearing moves into a second stage. We are led to drop our striving and rely on Amida alone, meaning rely on the Dharma side of truth or enlightenment. At this moment, we deeply hear the call of other power, meaning the power of the Dharma, not like a bolt of lightning or something like that, telling us that just as we are welcomed into the land of bliss, never to be abandoned, meaning the world of truth or enlightenment. Here, Nembutsu truly becomes a shout of joyful gratitude rather than a cry for help. In the third stage of deep hearing, the first two are assimilated. We continue to seek out the Dharma and receive solace from it, deep listening to the wisdom of our teachers and peers. And we hear the promise of Amida when we are led to say Nembutsu, ever renewing our remembrance of the gift of other power. Finally, we also perceive the call and presence of Amida in all things. Just as the birds, trees, rivers, and all things in the Pure Land preach the Dharma, so through deep hearing, we encounter the ways in which all phenomena constantly demonstrate the Dharma to us. All of this, each stage, is brought about by the process of other powers working on us through deep hearing. May we always keep our ears open to the Dharma right now and in every situation. So, taking now, of course, we have to start with listening, and we are the ones practicing listening. But as we continue to listen and listen and listen, then this listening becomes deep hearing, in which we are hearing a truth beyond our ego self. So I think this is what he's trying to allude to, this subtle difference between just listening and deep hearing. So I think I've mentioned this before too, but there's a lady I go to Sacramento Temple once a month, and there is a lady there, elderly lady, 91, 92 years old, and she's very hard of hearing. She can't hardly hear the message at all, but she comes every Sunday. And I did this Dharma talk where I kind of talk to people in the Sangha, and I asked her, what do you enjoy best about coming to the temple? And she says, I enjoy coming to listen to the Dharma talks, although I really can't hear them anymore because I'm so hard of hearing. But yet, I just like to listen. See? So, you would think if you were hard of hearing and you couldn't hear, why go? Stay home, watch TV, turn the volume up, or go to brunch. Gee, if I can't hear the message, what meaning is there? No. See, she's been listening and listening her whole life, so now it's deep hearing, or she's listening through her whole being. Even if she can't hear the words, she sees the joyous faces of the children, and maybe she senses something from the minister's message, something beyond words. And so, that's a person who I think is at the stage of deep hearing, even they cannot hear the word. So any thoughts on this second essay on deep hearing? Yes. I'm sorry. Can you give her the microphone over there? Jeb? Your name again was. Your name again was.
Jane.
Jane. Sorry, I had the J, but I didn't have the rest of it.
Sensei, this has been bothering me for a long time.
Yes.
Because I'm a new member of
Uh-huh.
the church. I'm
Mhm.
going to OCBC.
Mhm.
And you talked about that in today's Dharma talk about the use of the chanting.
Yes. Yes.
See, and you said how chanting prepares you then to hear the Dharma talk.
Yes.
But I'm having difficulty with the chanting because
Uh-huh.
it's not even Nihongo. I'm singing, what does this word I'm trying to say?
Right.
And I'm trying to, what I learned from Japanese school, those words
Uh-huh.
don't make any sense to me. And then when you're chanting, and I was raised sort of Christian church, and even the songs, it doesn't make sense. So I'm feeling I can never become a Buddhist because I don't understand this chanting.
Okay. Yeah. So be patient, okay? Be patient. And everyone feels that way in the beginning. It's so foreign. It's so foreign. What is this chanting? So first of all, it's Sino-Japanese. Even a Japanese person doesn't understand what we're chanting, okay? Because it's part Chinese, but with a Japanese pronunciation. So, like I said, just your average Japanese person, they open the service book, they don't know what they're chanting either, unless they've been studying Buddhism in a study class or something to know what's going on. So, chanting has, we even talk about it in our service book. If you open the service book to page, let's see, where is that? We have it on, I think it's before the chanting section, or 28. Yeah, 28. So let's everybody take out page 28 and take a look at this. So what we experience by chanting. Maybe you haven't had a chance, no one's pointed this out to you before, Jane. So let me read this, follow along. Chanting in Shin Buddhism has a meditative aspect, a ritual aspect, and a learning aspect. The meditative aspect of chanting is the same as the meditative aspect of sitting. Being fully engaged in sitting or in chanting enables us to focus on the present moment. Focusing in this way is helpful before listening to a Dharma message. The meditative aspect of chanting is available even if we do not know the meaning of the words. Okay, then secondly, chanting also has a ritual aspect. Rituals bring our views into alignment with a timeless message by reenacting events or stories that express the Buddhist teachings. In chanting the sutras, we maintain a link with the disciples of the Buddha who transmitted these words over the centuries. The ritual aspect includes the feeling of oneness that develops among people who participate. The learning aspect of chanting comes through listening to the Dharma. True listening takes place when we grasp the meaning of the words. It will be difficult to understand the words solely by chanting an English translation of a Chinese text. Instead, we learn to appreciate the meaning by attending study classes and by becoming familiar with the separate English translations in this service book. Most Shin Buddhist chants conclude with a verse called Ekoku, or directing virtue to all beings, by the Pure Land teacher Shandao. And this is what we end with every time. Gan ni shikudoku byodo se issai do hoten bodai shin ojo anda koku. And the translation of that is, I vow that the virtue of this truth, meaning the truth that is expressed in that chant, be given equally to all. May they awaken the Bodhi mind and realize the realm of peace and joy. Okay, so I don't know if this is helpful, but so we have these three aspects to chanting: this meditative aspect, the ritual aspect, and then the learning aspect. So in the beginning, it's totally foreign, but in time, I hope you just be patient with it, and then you'll come to learn some of the meanings of it. And that's why we have these adult discussions and also study classes. So that's how you can learn. Okay? But maybe someone else can share how they felt in the beginning, about chanting. Yeah.
I have a thought that.
Oh, yes.
I keep thinking about the truth or the pureness or meaning, I keep thinking that maybe it can be found in the silence or the stillness. And as far as the chanting goes, I'm thinking about the TED Talk, and it seems that our social media driven culture at large puts an overemphasis on the individual and your voice and that sharing. And there's a loss of obedience and discipline that comes in this free, open framework. And the meditation helps, I think, in that discipline, the ritual aspect, of which the meaning will come if you can be still or quiet long enough. And so I'm going to listen and be patient, like you said, and keep coming.
Russ.
Yes, Russ. Sorry, Russ.
Yeah, well, first of all, I shared maybe not exactly the same experience, but the chanting's kind of odd at first.
Yeah, right.
I turned the corner maybe 2 months ago when I try to distill it in a very simple. So there's interconnectedness and impermanence. Those two seem to be so fundamental.
Right.
And so when I started listening to it as one community of voices, interconnected in almost a web that's kind of hard to explain. It was a very weird experience, actually. And so and then on top of that, you look at it's also voices across time. And so that there was that sense of that concept of interconnectedness that, at least for me, I don't even care what the words are at this point. It's just that feeling of we're all together doing this.
Right,
and I'll be honest, sometimes that's spooky too, because I think of fascism and things like that. But but it's not that. And so it anyway, it helps. But for me, it's I'll stop listening to myself actually and start to try to listen to everybody else.
Very good point. Yeah. Stacy?
Thank you. One of the biggest things that I think is a hindrance toward deep listening or deep hearing is our social habit of multitasking and feeling like we never have enough time. So even when Eugene and I sit and talk sometimes, I'm making dinner or I'm folding laundry or I'm doing something else besides just listening. And so having that awareness is what I'm trying to really work on, is my awareness. And I think that's what Buddhism is helping me with, is my awareness of what I do, how I do it. And I think it's a good reminder that the multitasking is not really multitasking. It's just almost a huge blockade from actual communication.
Right. That's really But I think I'd freak my wife out if I went home and at dinner go, okay, listen, we're just going to be focused and talk. But it is true. We do so many things all at once. Someone else? Oh, yes. Oh, over here. Okay.
Now I have to remember what I was going to say. Multitasking. So that's such a thing that, we have a family, we have kids, and we're driving, she's going to work, we're getting homework, and then I got to go to the store because somebody needs something. So it's such a big part of your life, of just getting through your life. You can't get away from it. But I try to make where you find those moments to where, like, hey, this is just where we're going to, of course, every day when I pick up my kids from school, I say, how was your day? And they say, fine. What happened? Nothing. Okay, cool. But and a lot of times we have dinner in front of the new Simpsons is coming on, so let's all have dinner. We're going to watch Simpsons and have dinner. But at least once a week or something like that. Hey, no, we're having dinner at the big table. We're going to sit there and we're going to look at each other's faces and we're going to talk. So I do try to make, you try to pick out those moments where you can have that balance, even though it is very balanced. Just at least leave those moments for your kids to talk to you or each other.
Good point.
Yeah.
Growing up in our family, we didn't have the TV on or anything when we had dinner, and like I grew up on a farm, so sometimes we talk about what's happening on the school. Marcia?
I just wanted to go back to something that Jane said about something like, I'll never be a Buddhist, or I don't understand this. I mean, I know English and Spanish, but this helped me not at all with the Japanese. So I can really, but I don't know if I've said this, but I didn't refer to myself as a Buddhist for the first year or two that I was coming here, because I think in our culture we have like bars for things, and I thought, oh, I'm not like the people that go there. And then I remember asking Jim Pollard a question after something. I said, I don't really like to ask questions because I feel like everybody knows things I don't know. And he just burst out laughing. He goes, no, not everybody knows. But I think for me with the chanting, I was actually so excited for the chanting because I had read about chanting in books. And you may not know, but I think some of the chants are just people trying to write down what it was, just chanting that was done for a long time, and people just tried to capture the sound, is what I understand for some. So I think that's really exciting that so many centuries later, we're chanting something that some monk used to do, and lay people never even got to hear, and that we get to do that. And you'll hear coming here that it's a process, and you have to trust. Just come and listen and do the rituals. And it's really, really true. Like, this has really changed my life. And I do tell everybody proudly now that I'm a Buddhist. And things have changed for me here and there. Like the listening, I was so excited at first. And then I got really involved. And I would be during the chant thinking about an announcement I had to make, or flyers, or like who's going to get the pizza for this thing, And now, today it was different than it's ever been. I have been struggling with a sadness about something a family member is going through. And I heard Reverend Harada's voice, and it just really connected, and it was really exciting to just go with it and be together. And I was sort of feeling like I can get the wisdom of, some wisdom through this chanting. And I do think there's a lot of things like that here where you don't understand it in your head, but you just feel it in your heart.
Yeah, thanks, Marcia. Thank you. So if a person's going through something, a personal crisis or whatever, meditation can help that person to have kind of an insight, because their mind is so sort of frazzled, but in quieting their mind, then insight comes. Like, oh, gee, I thought of this. So I think the chanting has that same kind of meditative aspect there. And then getting back to Russ's point about, we talk about oneness, but we experience oneness. Every Sunday, if you really chant and participated, 300 people's voices, and each voice is unique, and it all blends into one beautiful sound. And then the tradition is what we chanted today, the Nembutsu Wasan, has been chanted exactly like that for over 500 years. And the melody of what we chanted goes back to Buddhism in China over 1,200 years. And when we chant the Jusei or Sambutsage, then we're going back even further beyond that. So you might imagine 500 years ago, some Shin Buddhists are chanting exactly like we did today. So there's that connection. But I want to thank Jane for her question, which really brought out this discussion. Really wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, yes. Right, yep, up here, Rod. And I'm sorry, your name was?
My name is Liz.
Liz, okay,
Yeah.
Liz.
I'm from Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, and got here not too long ago.
Oh.
Gotta jump in, learn English, right? And then I started coming here, and I'm like, wow, I need to learn Japanese because I don't know what this says. And that's a little bit harder, life gets on the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I just realized that, okay, I don't really know what Namo Amida Butsu really means. I don't really know many of these words, but I just realized that it's really not about the word. It's about the meaning that I give to the word. So sometimes if I'm having a bad day, just take a minute, breathe, and just say the word. And I don't know what the word means, but it's just coming from the heart, and it just makes me feel better. So I don't know, I just kind of learned that, the meaning is whatever meaning you're giving to that word.
And so I would encourage you to continue to have that question, well, what does it mean? And that your answer to that question will maybe change, but it may also deepen as well. So for now, I think one way to think of it is Namo Amida Butsu is an expression of the oneness of yourself and Buddha. Yourself and Buddha. Namu represents me, unenlightened, selfish, foolish being. Amida Buddha represents the truth of enlightenment, wisdom, and compassion. And it's one word, Namu. So, in a sense, my heart and mind is one with the heart and mind. And so, when you're feeling upset about something, you can quietly say, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, and you might find your heart and mind being settled, or some peace coming to your heart and mind. But don't go to Las Vegas and go, Namu Amida Butsu. Believe me, that doesn't work. If it worked, I would be there every weekend, And it may not be, the doctor says you have cancer or something like that, and it's not like Namu Amida Butsu, saying Namu Amida Butsu is going to cure you of your cancer, but Namu Amida Butsu gives you the spiritual strength to face that. That's why you'll find a meaning as it goes of what Namu Amida Butsu means. But thanks for asking that question. Okay, well, thank you everyone for such a wonderful discussion today. So we'll close with Gassho. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu.